How are you doing? This is David W. Williams, also known as Diamond Dave. And what we're going to talk about today is, will you ever be able to retire? The question is, after you get done working towards the end of your run, will you be able to retire, or will you be in a position to where you have to work until you fall off on your job? And what I mean is that you're just going to have to keep working until you just get so sick that you can't work anymore. You get so infirm to where you can't operate on the job and they just won't allow you to be on the job anymore. Or will you be in a position to where you can step away from everything and go live the rest of your life? And for many years, American workers were kind of guaranteed a retirement. That was part of the implicit arrangement that they had with their job, is that I'm going to work X amount of years. And then what'll happen is when I get done working, my job will allow me to retire. That pretty much ended in the 70s and it no longer exists. And what the American worker found out is they had to figure out how to finance their own retirement, right? So the dream of the American worker post World War II is you're going to work for this company. They have a pension. And when you're done working, you're going to be able to retire off your pension with that particular company. In this, like we'll say the 60s and the 70s, they kind of got rid of that. And they started telling the American worker, you have to figure out how to retire yourself. And many people, because they don't have the instructions, they don't have the understanding, and for a lot of other reasons, they often don't know how to retire themselves, right? And I'm talking about in the real world. I'm not talking about this internet stuff, and we're going to kind of go into that. So that's what we're going to talk about today, because I think that what it's going to take for people to retire in the future is not talked about. And because it's not talked about, people are going to arrive at that particular point and they're going to find out they're going to be unprepared. When you start looking at the rate of inflation, when you start looking at the diminishing ability of the dollar, the problem is that a lot of people are going to arrive even maybe with $1 million, and they're going to find out in 2050 that they don't have enough money and they got $1 million sitting up because they were told you're going to have $1 million retirement, as if $1 million in 2023 is going to spend $1 million in 2050 is going to spend the same way it's going to spend in 2023. So that's kind of what we're going to talk about. So we're going to give you some examples of people that figured out how to retire themselves. Now, really quickly, this particular broadcast is sponsored by www.thehighestpaid.online. We have a options training live in Atlanta, Georgia. We're going to close this off for participants on the 7th of October. So we got a few seats left. We're only going to be selling to 30 people. So I want to really encourage you to get in before we close it off, because once we close it off, we're not going to allow any further sales. So here's going to be a promo for that, and then we're going to get back to the broadcast.
Do you want to learn about options trading in a live setting with people who are serious about their financial future? The Highest Paid Online Options Trading Academy is hosting a live event on October 21, 2023 in Atlanta, Georgia. The event will only seat 30 people. After the 30 seats are sold, this event will be closed. Here is some of what you will learn at this live options training. How to use the options market to finance your dream lifestyle. The #1 secret to safeguarding the money you make in trading. Why the options market is a hidden gem most overlook. How to develop the power of waking up and knowing you will make money in the market. You will leave with a solid understanding of how to successfully leverage the options market to get the life you desire. Don't waste all of your time trying to figure out options trading by yourself. Go directly to optionstraining.info and sign up right now.
Okay, so let's get straight to it. So here's an article from the Wall Street Journal. We go ahead and bring it up. And here's what $5 million retirement looks like in America. And we're looking at this article. We're examining multiple people that are retired with 5 million or greater. And so let's go ahead and look at this article. We're going to kind of examine these particular participants, and we're going to ask some questions based around this article, because I read this article, I want to say a few weeks ago, and I thought it was a really good article for people to kind of baseline themselves. Many people will not get to 5 million, but the question is, what will they retire with? And will that be sufficient for them to live the lifestyle that they want to live, right, inside the United States? Or maybe they have to leave and go to another country to support themselves with their retirement, which is not anything unusual. So according to the article, the 5 million retirement nest egg puts you in the top 1% of households, according to an Employment Benefit Research Institute analysis of retirement accounts. And if you're looking at this particular graph, based on this particular analysis, so they did family retirement savings that are in a tax-preferred account, such as defined contribution plans, IRAs, and KEOGs, if that's pronounced correctly. That's from a 2019 survey. We see that 49% of these people surveyed have $0. 8.9 got one to let's say 1 to 10,000. 13% 10,000 to 50,000. 7.4 50,000 to around 100,000. 13.9 100,000 to around $500,000. 4.0 $500,000 to around $1 million. Then 3.1 $1 million to around $5 million. And then that 0.1% is people that have 5 million or more, families that have saved 5 million for retirement. Okay. So they broke down these particular retirees, and I thought this was a really good article. So we got a 65-year-old man named Paul Shimwell out of Houston, Texas, H-Town. His annual spending is $144,000 a year. Now that's more than most people spend working, and he's spending that as a retiree, but he has a financial ability to do that, right? So let's keep going. So Shimwell retired in December after 4 decades, was going to be 40 years flying commercial planes and jet fighters. So he has $6.1 million stashed up as a 65-year-old. So he feels financially secure, right? So he stopped flying after 28 years working for Southwest. And I think Houston is a Southwest hub, if I'm correct. Travel remains his passion. He got 4 trips planned this fall. That's going to cost him around $3,000 a month. So his travel costs him around $3,000 a month. He spends another $9,000 a month on expenses such as property taxes, home and car insurance. Okay. He's going to take Social Security when he reaches full retirement age. That's going to bring him in around another $40,000 in annual income. So he's an empty nester. He got a son and a daughter. He's divorced with joint custody, right? And that's going to be over in a few years anyway, once his kids get over 18. And he makes it a priority to be deeply involved in his kid's life. So if he got a son that's a sophomore in college, and he got a daughter that starts college this fall, we can kind of approximate the age of those children. And then we can approximate with him being 65, what year did he have those children? Okay. His portfolio is 95% stocks, mostly index funds, with a few individual equities such as Apple. So he says his plan is to continue to live within or below his means, stay invested, and have something to leave his children. He got around $300K left on his mortgage of his Houston home, and he refinanced that 3%. So he's in no rush to pay down the debt, right? He drives a 2016 Infiniti, got about 80K miles on that. And then he bought a used Mercedes for his daughter. Both those cars are paid for, and he pays his credit card bill in full each month. So he says he likes to keep things simple. So that's him. So now we got 61 and 60-year-old Jay and Anita Meyer. They're in Cary, North Carolina. Their annual spending is $130,000. We talked about before. Their annual spending is greater than what most people make working all year. So Mr. Meyer worked in software sales. He retired early in 2020. So that is what we're in 2023. So he retired in his late 50s after decades of maxing out contributions to his 401k. So he also went into, so he did Vanguard index funds, from my understanding, but he also did individual stocks, and those are shares in companies. He did software deals with, including Home Depot. He said he bought Home Depot at a split adjusted $3 a share. So he got in at the pretty much almost at the floor. So he and his wife, Anita, during this particular period, they drove used cars and they stuck to a budget so Meyer could contribute the manual annual limit to his 401k from age 22 on. So this guy started putting money in his 401k at age 22. Anita worked as a dental hygienist until their second son was born in year 2000. So we know if the second son was born in year 2000, we know what year it is now. It's 2023. She is 60. So then we back out the 60 from the age of her 23-year-old son, and we know about the age that she quit working. Okay, so that's going to be important because we're going to bring that up later. So we just can do the math and we can figure these people's time frames out. Okay. So the couple has 4.2 million, half in retirement accounts and the other half in taxable accounts. They spend about $130,000 annually, including $5,000 on property taxes. Each month they spend around $700 on food, $1,000 on health insurance, and they're currently spending from cash reserves. So the taxable income is low enough to qualify them for insurance subsidy. So I guess on the health insurance, they can go to the marketplace and get a subsidy because their income is low, because they're not spending income, they're spending cash reserves. And Mr. Meyer says he's going to wait till Social Security hits 70 to maximize that monthly benefit. Okay. Now that's their scenario. Now we got 72-year-old Henry Hu. He's in Irvine, California. His annual spending is $250. That's not a lot of money in California, but that's still most money than most people make. So this guy was a former surgeon. He used to put in 80 hours a week. Now he works part-time and around his vacations. Now, this is something I talked about before. There's a narrative, and say we don't try to attack people. We try to deal with narratives that women should go after these really high income earning men. And I had to explain to Miss Sharia, Black Woman Makes Money, is that I have a family member that is married to a guy that makes a lot of money. And she had to deal with the fact that guy works a lot. Nobody is going to pay you over a certain amount of money per year, and they're not going to ask you to work a lot. So as a surgeon, he was putting in up to 80 hours a week. That's a week. That's not every 2 weeks. Right? So he was getting compensated, but they're going to work you because nobody's going to pay you over a certain amount of money as a job, and they're not going to expect you to put a lot of hours in. It doesn't work that way. And so I think because people haven't been exposed to people that actually make a lot of money, they're coming in with this mentality that I'm going to deal with this man who's a high income earner because I want to live a certain lifestyle, and he's going to be home every night at 4:30. It doesn't work that way. That's not how these things set up. Whether they're on salary, whether they're in management, or whether their job just demands that kind of time requirement from them. So he and his wife are immigrants from Taiwan. They came to the U.S. in 1979. He's a widower, so his late wife. He studied surgery for 5 years, Chicago, went into colorectal surgery, Michigan in 1986. Then he moved to Southern Cal, where he and his wife raised 3 children. Okay. He travels up to 3 months a year. And his home is worth $1.5 million. He got a second home worth $1.2 million. He rents that out for $3,500 a month. That's something that Erica talks about a lot. He owes about $500,000 on each house, but he doesn't want to pay the mortgages off because the interest rates are below 3%. So he was able to get into those homes early before interest rates went up. He invests almost all of the more than $1 million in retirement accounts, in equity funds, individual stocks, including Apple, Microsoft, and NVIDIA. So he's had a great run in NVIDIA this year. He gets around $2,700 a month in Social Security benefits. He started taking that at 65. He also receives $130 a year in pension payments, and he earned about $300,000 from his per diem work last year. So he's still working, here and there. So he made around $300,000 last year from working. So travel is his big splurge at $100K a year. His other expenses come to about $4K a month, not counting his mortgage payments. He also pays about He pays about $6,800 annually for long-term care insurance policy, which makes sense at his age. Okay. Now we got Bob and Pat Frey, 80 and 75 years old. They in Bozeman, Montana, which I don't know where that's at. I know where Montana is out on the map, but I never heard of that city. Their annual spending is around $220, which makes them an outlier in Bozeman, Montana. Right? They probably spend the most money in that city. Bob graduated from West Point, got his master's degree at active duty. Then he got a veterinarian degree with an Army Reserve scholarship and a GI Bill. He spent 26 years as a reserve officer, retiring at age 60. He maxed out his retirement plan contributions starting in his 30s, right? He was in business, sold 3 businesses over the years, including 2 veterinary practices. Those exits greatly added to his worth. So he's 80, his wife is 75. They've socked away $6.1 million, half which is invested in individual retirement accounts. He gets around a $60,000 annual military pension, plus about $14,000 a year in veterans disability compensation because he served in Vietnam. The couple collects around $56,000 in total from Social Security. They've been married for 30 years. They've been married for over 30 years. They have 5 adult children. They moved to Bozeman, Montana in the 1990s for a fresh start, to be closer to nature. His wife, Pat, continued her nursing career, right? And Bob retrained as a certified financial planner. So they expect to spend $1.5 million to help pay for the education of their 9 grandchildren. And they also donate $40K a year to their favorite charities, including the church. They have no debt, and they don't tinker with their investments, 70%, which is invested in stock funds. And they say they spend around $35,000 a year on travel. Okay. So those are examples of people who have this amount of retirement set up, and they're in position now to retire with that really, really, really big nest egg. And so what we want to kind of talk about is, how do they get in that position? Is that something that the average person can duplicate? Because there's some similarities in these particular case studies that we want to talk about. So let's first go to them. First thing, what do all the people in this article have in common? Like, what are some of the similarities between these people in this article? What do they have amongst each other? And in my opinion, based on reading this, the income, it was above median US income. If you look at all these examples, their income as workers was well above the median. Most people were not making what they were making. You know, one guy was a commercial airline pilot. It was a jet pilot. The other guy was a surgeon. The other person was in sales. And then the other guy was a veterinarian with his own business. And he also had business exits, right? So we know if you're good at sales, you're going to make a lot of money. It's a hard profession because you're getting paid on production, but you got to, if you actually pull it off, you can make a lot of money. We know pilots make good money, right? They work a lot, but they do make good money. But pilots work a lot. I just getting ready to book a plane ticket for a holiday. Somebody's going to be working that holiday. So we say again, there's a trade-off. Pilots make a lot of money and they work a lot too, because somebody has to work the holidays and fly us around on the holidays. So they don't get the holidays off. They got to work on the holiday. Like I had to work on a holiday when I was in healthcare. The other guy was in the military. We talked about him being a veterinarian. Other guy was a surgeon. We know surgeons work holidays too. If you get sick on Christmas, you don't want to show up at the hospital and everybody's on vacation, right? So they made the money, but the compensation they had to put in was their time. So that's the first thing. They had well above average income. In the example, all were married. However, one is a widow. But if you look at all the examples, nobody got to that number as a single person. They all got to that number in a marriage. Now, I think a lot of that has to do with their age. I think the youngest person might have been in 61. So he might have been the youngest example. But in that era, the narrative really wasn't common for you to try to do this stuff as a single person. Right. And I know the people that are 75 and 80 back then, people got married. Right. So nobody tried to do this as a single person because there was no internet there to come up with these false narratives on how you really become successful. So they didn't have to deal with that. They just had to go live their life. Right. So if you look at all these examples, all of these people were part of a partnership with somebody else that helped them get in the position that they're currently in. Even the one guy that's a divorcee. In two situations, the wife worked at some time. Right. So I know there's this narrative that Anglo women don't work. Right. Because they men make so much money. And even though these men were making a lot of money, their wife was working. We talked about the one woman that has a 23-year-old son that was born in 2000. She's 61. So we can back her ages out and figure out what year she stopped working, because she stopped working after the birth of that particular person. So we can just back out those years and figure out how old was she when she stopped working, which is 23 years ago. And she's 61 years old or 60 years old. Right. The other guy who was a veterinarian, his wife worked as a nurse. They had 5 children. Right. And we're not saying that stay-home mothers don't work. We're not saying that. But I'm saying is that the narrative that these men are so financially successful that their wives don't work, we still haven't found any data to support that. It's just a narrative that people have spun to try to sell courses and to, get YouTube views. But we don't have any real data to really support that. The one guy that was a divorcee, we don't know if his wife worked, but we know he worked and he had 2 children. But he was married at one time, right? The surgeon person, we don't know if his wife worked, but they had 2 children. His wife may not have had to work, right? Because he was making so much money, but she sure wasn't going to see him if he's working 80 hours a week. But that's the kind of hours surgeons put in. Okay, so let's go to the next one. They started investing early and putting away as much as possible. And I think that's really what helped them. The one guy that was in sales started investing at 22 years old. The other guy who was from the military started putting in maximum at 30. They didn't really speak to what the surgeon and what Palm Shimwell did. We know 2 of them. One guy started investing at 22. So it's very unusual for a 22-year-old to be concerned with his retirement, but he was, and it paid off. So at 61, really his late 50s, he was able to retire, right? And he had 2 children, okay? So they started investing and putting away as much money as possible. But what allowed them to do that? The money that they had coming in the door. And I think many young people can't invest or may not feel comfortable investing early because they may feel like I don't have the money to do it because I'm just trying to figure out how to pay all my bills. See, them coming from another era, you could go get a school education and you won't come out of school owning the whole world because they're older people. These people A lot of them are pretty much what we call baby boomers. Some are not baby boomers, but some of them are. Right? I think the youngest person was in their 60s. Everybody else was older than that. I think Shimwell was 65. Right? So in their era, you could come out of school and you don't owe somebody, $100,000 or more for your education. So they don't have that necessarily hanging over their head. Well, now, if you go to college just to try to get you an education so you can go make some money, you can come out on a lot of money. So that now it can limit your ability to put money away because you got to pay the bank. Right. But what was fortunate for them was they was able to start investing early and putting away as much as possible. And I think that really helped them over time, because one thing about those index funds is you got to start early and just be consistent over the course of your life. And that's really how you benefit from those. So now we have questions, right? So the first question we want to ask is, can you duplicate this success earning less in these couples? Because all of these people, their income was above average, right? It was well above median. The individuals were making more than whole households as individuals, especially the surgeon. He was making more than a whole household, because their spending right now as retired people is more than whole households, right? Their spending as retired people is more than people's whole household's income. And most people, you think as they retire, they spend less money. No, they're spending more than most people. And the question is, can you duplicate this success earning way less in these couples? What will it look like for you? I'm not saying you got to earn what they earn. I'm not saying you got to stack up 6 million by retirement. But can you duplicate that success? Because you really got to start having a conversation. Will the $1 million do what you think it's going to do? Because for years, British pensioners have been going to Asia to retire because they know that if they stay in the UK, it's going to run through their money. There's a brother that got a YouTube channel right now. He's helping people get relocated to Mexico because they're trying to retire, and they know that if they stay in the United States, they're going to just run through their money. So they're moving to Mexico to retire, because they didn't earn enough money to retire with $2-3 million sitting up, even if they were saving something for retirement. They just weren't in that position to do that. Next question. How come the wives in these examples were not living a soft life before retirement? We've seen the two scenarios of the women working. How come they weren't living a soft life? How come they just weren't sitting up all day, right? Just chilling while their husband's working? Because we know that's the narrative. But we have multiple examples of that not being a reality. That's just a narrative. People can carry a narrative that pigs can fly. Don't mean pigs can actually fly. So when you're looking at these examples of people that have actually done this, right, and we believe the story being presented to us by the Wall Street Journal, we want to ask ourselves, how come this doesn't match the narrative that we are being told on the internet, that the man's supposed to work, he's supposed to make all the money, and the lady just supposed to sit up and look pretty? And her ability to look pretty and be feminine is going to determine her ability to get a man that makes a lot of money. Right? So, Mr. Dave, I'm going to let you chill out for a minute because I don't know what that got to do with what I'm talking about. So the next one is, can you duplicate this success as a single person who's not a celebrity? So that's the question you want to ask yourself. If I'm a single person, but I'm not a celebrity like Oprah. I was talking to somebody that earlier today. Oprah. If I'm not Oprah Winfrey, if I'm not a celebrity, can I duplicate this success as a single person? Because where would the income come? If I'm doing this, trying to get to these numbers all by myself, can I do that? Or will I need the help of somebody else? Right? And if the other person is making all the money and the other partner is not bringing any money in, how do they save for retirement? That's going to be a whole nother video. Because we don't see with any of these scenarios where the one person was responsible for not only paying all the bills, they was also responsible for all the retirement. Because I'm trying to figure out where all that money is going to come from. So we got a whole adult person in the house that's bringing no kind of revenue into the house. I'm not saying they got to work full time, but they're bringing in no revenue. They're not sitting back thinking about ideas to multiply the money. They just living off the money the one person's making. I don't know. That's a child to me, but everybody live different. So can you duplicate that success as a single person, not a celebrity? Because if you're tasked with, I got to make 100% of the money, I got to pay 100% of the bills, and then I got to finance 100% of the retirement, and you're married, but you're operating financially as a single person. So then can you duplicate this same success? So I like publications like the Journal, because they examine these type of things, and they don't put a lot of ketchup on the hot dog when they do it, to get people to kind of understand what the reality is and how you kind of fit into it. And we saw, based on that particular diagram, there's a lot of people based on this particular survey. So this survey is not going to be everybody in the world, but this survey, there's a lot of people that are going to be well under $1 million for retirement. So we got 1 million to 4 million, or really 5 million was 3.1, right? And everybody else falling under that. We have 13% at 10,000 to 50,000 trying to retire on, other 13% at 100,000 to 500,000. How far would that money go in this particular environment that we're living in? Okay, so that's pretty much going to be it. Wasn't going to be long-winded, but I had this article and I want to kind of bring it out because I thought it was really, really important. But I want to really encourage people to start thinking about their retirement as early as possible, and to partner work with people that are thinking about this too, right? Because if you want to retire and you want to retire in a certain lifestyle, to me, you have to be very deliberate in trying to get there. And these people had children. They weren't just single people. These people had children. They lived a full life, but they're also able to retirement because it was something that they were thinking about, but they had a plan. They had a structure. They weren't just winging it on the way to retirement. They weren't just saying, well, we'll see how it goes. And I think that's what they benefited from. Okay. So we're going to read these comments. We're going to read these super chats, and we're going to get up on out of here. So Miss Selfish Love, appreciate you coming through. Appreciate the $4.99 super chat. Let's get to the next one. We're going to pull that out. And so if anybody got any questions, comments, disagreements, I'm going to go ahead and put the link up. You can come through. We can chop it up real quick before I get up on out of here. Mr. Preston, what's going on? LJ, what's going on? Dr. Chaz, what's going on? GC, what's up with it? Girls with Pearls, what's going on? Jets, what's up with it? Miss Hill, what's going on? Mr. A says 130K spending. That's a lot to me. That's a lot to me too. I mean, I couldn't imagine spending $130,000 in a year and I'm not buying a house. But I mean, he got it like that, so he can do that. K Mark says working for global companies as an executive will have you working in all time zones on urgent matters. Easily work 60 hours a week. Yeah, I don't know anybody that makes over $125,000 a year that doesn't work a lot. And I know people make less than that work a lot. I used to know a woman, she was a manager at the biggest retailer in the world. She wouldn't open it. She would go to work at 12 and get off at 12. And she would do that multiple days a week. Right? And she was a divorcee with like 4 children. And she just worked all the time. But it allowed her to make a certain amount of money with just a high school diploma because she worked in the retail space. I don't know where these people are at that are making 6 figures or greater and they're not working a lot, right? They could be like in New York because 6 figures is different in New York. It could be in Southern Cali because it's different. But where I'm from in Florida and in the Southeast, I don't know people that are making over 6 figures and they're not working a lot. I mean, they're working a lot. I just don't know where this exists, or their salary and they're not even counting hours. You just work until the work is done. But like I say, man, the internet creates these narratives that don't have anything to do with like the real world, because we know a lot of people, they're not living in the real world. They living in the world they built for themselves, but that's cool. What's going on, Miss Katrina Alexander? What's going on, Mr. Bass? So Katrina says we started investing in 2000. We got married in 2001. That's good. That's good. That's a good deal. It's that long term and people putting that time into it. And that's a lot of time what they benefit from it. So big up to y'all, because now that's going on almost 23 years. So big up. So y'all caught them runs in the market. So Katrina says a lot more, like 40 hours a week. So girl says, I know a few million make over 100K in insurance. They work no more than so many hours. I feel you. Yeah, I don't know anybody that works, that makes over 100K that don't work over 40 hours. I'm not saying it don't exist. I just don't know it, because I know a lot of people that work in sales. and they not only work during the week, they work on the weekend. They work on the weekend and they work a lot because they got to set sales up. Okay, so we got somebody. Let me go ahead and get this correct.
Oh, do I got to be on camera?
Let me put my headphones in real quick.
What's going on? Is camera required?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
What's going on? Hey, appreciate everything you do. And shout out to
appreciate
Erica
it.
Williams also.
So what's going on? You got any comments, disagreements, or questions?
No disagreements. I am one of those rare people that make the six figures that doesn't work a lot, but
Okay.
I'm a lazy.
So-
I'm a federal employee. So
on average, how many hours you put in a week?
40. I'm a 40-hour man.
So you just do just a 40. They don't let y'all get over 40. You just able to cut it off at 40.
I wish we would get more than 40. I wish.
So they don't let y'all get over 40.
Usually we don't have to work. If they did, then
Okay.
I would. But
Okay.
it's but however, the narrative, most people who make a lot of money do a lot of work. That is true. You're absolutely correct.
No, I mean, I know
nothing.
everybody's situation. Then we just trying to get some understanding so people can get
Oh, yeah.
exposed to different perspectives. What part of the country you work in?
I'm remote. I live in Florida, Central Florida.
Okay, so you just work remote.
Yeah, but it's not common. Your narrative is the truth. People don't
but
get paid for nothing.
But do you contract directly? Are you working with a company to where they're contracted to the federal government, or do you work directly to the federal government?
I'm direct.
So you're a federal employee.
Yeah.
Okay, I feel you. Okay, well, I feel you. Yeah. So
Yeah,
oh, go ahead.
go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'll say I'm not pushing back on the narrative. The truth, ain't nobody getting paid and getting free money for nothing. That's not realistic. You want to make
you a good example, because if somebody's looking for somebody that make over $100,000 and they don't work over 40, they need to link up with you. Because most of the people I know that's making over 100 grand, they working way more than 40 hours. And some of me was government workers. I used to date a woman, her people worked in customs. They was making real big money. They stayed at work. And they work for customs. They work for customs out in Miami. They stayed at work. They couldn't.
Miami's one of the worst ports. Yeah.
Yeah, they couldn't get off the job.
Yeah, that's one of the roughest places. Miami, San Diego.
Okay.
Border town. Yeah, they work the tar out of them. They make good money, but
they was making real good money. They had a real big house. It's this I forgot this neighborhood that's south of Alligator Alley. Forgot the name of this community. So they had a real big house. But yeah, they both worked in customs. They stayed at work.
Man, that's two good incomes though.
Yeah, they was making big money, had a big old house making good money, but they always was working. So you, like I say, people that are looking for somebody that make over 100K, at the 100K and only gonna be home every night, they need to link up with you. Because most people I know people that worked in sales. I know people that work especially in healthcare. They making real big money, but they stay on the job. They can't get off the job.
Yeah. No, I was gonna say, I appreciate what you do. I've been listening to your videos for a minute. I came across you through Erica Williams.
Okay.
When you go against Red Pill, you're 100% correct, and I love it. I think you should do more videos pushing back on some of these fake narratives about these fictional cavemen they keep making up in their head, and these fictional you hit the wall when you turn 23 women and all this stuff. There's some great videos you're doing.
Okay, I appreciate it, man. Yeah, so if we can get it to, coming from an economic perspective, I definitely make it. But I appreciate you coming through, man. I want to just encourage you to keep doing what you're doing and keep making that money. Because like I say, if they're paying you 100K and you only got to do the 40, I would stick with it, man.
All right. Appreciate all that you do. Just come up and show some support.
All right, man. Be easy.
All right.
All right. Okay, man. Peace out to Selfish Love. So we got one person. So like I say, y'all link up with him because he getting over the 100K, only doing the 40. But like I said, I dated a woman, her people working in customs. Man, they stayed at work. They made a lot of money though, but they couldn't get off that job. They used to carry pistols to work too. It was crazy. I ain't even know customs was like that. So Dark Man says a lot of people relying on Social Security for retirement. I'm glad I wise up in my 30s, start putting something away. Yeah, I'm happy for you too, man. So you have something to live off of. So Selfish Love said I started maxing out my 401k at 27 as a single person. But my dad gifted me a house, so that helped a lot. Definitely, inheritances do help a lot. So big up to your parents and big up to you. So hubby had AD assignments home at 5 p.m. I feel you. So Katrina, what's a AD assignment? So Selfish Love says I was in public accounting working a ton. Now I'm switching to industry accounting for less hours and same pay. Yeah, I got a whole girl from my neighborhood. She works as a lead anesthesiologist. We was talking about medical. She make a whole lot of money. She always works. Like she can't stop working because she's the lead. If somebody don't come in, she got to come in. But she makes a lot of money though. She makes a lot of money. She and her husband make a lot of money, but she just always works. But you're used to that in medical. People in medical work a lot. LG, I got a friend who works for ICE, always work, always get overtime. I feel you. So Miss Therese Lee says, I work about 40 hours, make around $110K a year. I've been on my job for 20 years, yo. For you, what part of the country you live in? If you don't mind me asking. Oh, so Katrina says active duty. Okay, I don't know the terminology. So active duty, being home at 5 p.m. was rare during the high tempo years, 2001 to 2017. Yeah, I feel you. Yeah, I got my brother-in-law works in publishing. He makes over 100,000 a year, which is big, but it ain't big based on what part of the country that he lives in. He works over 40 hours a week, like every week. Like, I don't think there's ever a week he hasn't put in over 40 because he works a type of job where you just got to work till the work is done because they got to put projects out. So if the project takes 60 hours this week, that's what it takes, right? So they can't work them over so much because he's in a union, but I don't think he's ever worked 40 hours a week ever. But he makes a lot of money, right? So I just think it depends on the job, the part of the country that you live in. Okay, so Miss Lee, so yeah, and no, not to be disrespectful to you, but like where I'm at, 100,000 is more, in my opinion, than other parts of the country. So like I'm from the South. In Orlando, if you can make 60 grand a year, you balling, especially before the real estate went crazy. So I'm from Orlando. In Orlando, if you can bring back like 60,000 as a single person, you balling. So 100 grand is like a lot of money. Where I've been in other parts of the country, 100,000 don't spend the same way it's spent in the Southeast. Especially like if you live in Southern Cal, to me, 100,000, and it really ain't all that, because a home is 700,000. So big up to you on what you're doing, but I think the pay is different based on what part of the country. So I may need to adjust 100,000 to like if you live in the Northeast or Southern Cal, it might be like 200,000. Because I heard in New York City, doormen be making like 100K, and I'm not trying to down talk what you're making. I heard like doormen at real nice hotels in New York City, they be checking like 100. I don't know. I just heard that. But down south, if you can pull it, if outside of really Miami in Florida, if you can pull in 100,000, you doing it, especially as a single person, especially before the real estate went crazy. That's what messed it up was a real estate. You can get 100,000 with 2018 home prices. You on top. In Florida, you can. Outside of Miami. GC said you get 60K in my city, you doing it big. Yeah, I feel you. I know somebody lived in Huntsville, was making like, I don't know, not even close to 100,000, and they was balling. Okay, appreciate it. I wasn't trying to disrespect your salary because I'm all for people making their money. So I want people to think I'm trying to shade them. So Amazon Central Operations, you can make 90 to 120K, but you work 40 hours on site and average 5 to 10. I don't know what WFF means, on call. 90 to 120. And says, why do you think money spends different in the South? People don't make as much. I'm from a city where the average person is a service worker. So they don't make as much in Orlando. Orlando doesn't have manufacturing. It doesn't have a port. It doesn't have it doesn't have a lot of skilled work there. It has service. So it drives down the pay of everything. So, a lot of places in the South are not really based around, they're just now starting to get a tech footprint. They're just getting a lot of industrial footprints. So what they have is a lot of low skilled or semi-skilled workers, which drives down the money. So like if I was currently living in Jackson, Mississippi, I'll be balling with what I make. The problem with Atlanta is an expensive city to live in. But if I was making what I was making living in Jackson, making what I was making living in Augusta, making what I was making living in Orlando, Tampa, definitely Jacksonville, I'm balling because the cost of living is not as high. Now it is because of the real estate. Real estate went crazy, But before the pandemic, you can get a nice house in Florida for a lot of markets well under $200,000. So if you got two people, y'all both making 50, 60, y'all good. But up north is different. One of the business, the real estate is so high. So Girl with Pearl says you work for New Jersey Transit as a conductor. The highest pay make 80 to 120, no degree required. Bus drivers too. That's good money. Like I say, we ain't gonna look down on it. So doormen don't make 100K, they make money on tips. I feel, I don't know. I'm not from up there. Because where I'm from, we don't have doormen at hotels like that. I didn't see that till I went to the UK. I had never seen a doorman at a hotel till I went to the UK. I didn't even know they existed. Where I'm from, you just walk into the hotel. Imagine with all them hotels in Orlando, they try to put doormen at all them hotels. It'd be impossible. What do you need to earn a good life to live in Sugar Land, Texas? Over 100K. I used to live next to Sugar Land. Houses, they're real expensive. I would say over $100,000. That's just my own opinion. I used to live right next to Sugar Land, and I used to work out over there. I would say over 100,000, and right now it may be close to 200,000, right? Because everybody moving out there. Them houses not cheap because they so big out there. Houses in Texas in that area, they 2 stories. It's like a house and another house is crazy. Yeah, I would say well over 100,000. Because in Houston, you could be making $250,000, you ain't really moving nothing because of the money out there, right? Because the guy Shemwell, he's in Houston. Yeah, so Houston a little different. You know, in H-Town, you could be pulling in the easy. You could be pulling in $250,000. You ain't really shaking nothing like that. So it's just a different type of play. And then Sugar Land is an expensive area, but it's a nice area though. But it's in the sticks, which is why I ain't really like it. So LJ says you bought your home before 2020, great salary and ATL at the time was, yeah, good for you. I was talking to somebody that they're building homes in certain parts of DC starting at $900,000. So it is what it is. I think it's in Southeast. So they starting homes in Southeast at 900K. And they're not even homes, they townhomes. So Ann says from your research, it says people earn 65K on average. I don't believe people living in them homes at 65K, but I could be wrong. But I would encourage you to go out there and like put your eyeballs on it and ask yourself, do you think people out there making 65K? Right? I look at the homes. I don't think you can get into them houses at 65K a year, but I could be wrong, but I don't see it. I used to, like I said, I was out there. I don't think you can get into that house at 65K because I don't know how you're going to get it financed. Right? So I would encourage you to actually touch ground out there and talk to some agents in that area, or maybe talk to some agents in that area and ask them, like, based on their experience, what are home buyers making out there to get qualified for homes? Because when I was out there, I don't see how you can get a home in Sugar Land. Now, we may be calling Sugar Land 2 different places, but the Sugar Land that I know, that I was off Highway 6, I don't see how you can get a home out there for 65,000, making 60 grand a year, because what you going to get qualified on? Because if you make 100,000, what they qualifying people on? You know what I'm saying? And the home in the ATL area is $400,000. So then what do you got to get qualified on to even be allowed to buy that house? And then do they want their 10%? I haven't looked. I know about Stafford. Stafford's going to be a little bit different, but Stafford and Sugar Land not the same. Stafford not bad though, but you close to Southwest. But I would reach out to agents in that area and call agents up in that area and ask them, what are people making to get qualified for homes in that area? They'll tell you. So Selfish Love says you need 80 for Stafford. So if you need 80 for Stafford, I wonder what you need for Sugar Land. Because in my opinion, the homes in Sugar Land was way bigger than the homes in Stafford. But if we talking about the same Sugar Land, we could be talking about a different area. You know, I'm from Orlando. People that tell me they live in Orlando, they live in like Lake Mary. So we might be talking about 2 different areas. But the Sugar Land I'm talking about, yeah, them homes was big, man. They wasn't mansions, but they was big though. They was big, bro. Because in Houston, they got a house, and then they'll put like another house behind. It's almost like a guest house, but it's on the same piece of property. Yeah. So I don't know. But the homes I was seeing, now they did have some, if you go a little farther south on Highway 6, they was building some of the subdivisions out there for like maybe 300. But everything I was looking at off Highway 6 in what I was calling the Sugarland area, it was pushing north of $500,000 for the house. Pushing north. So I don't see how you get qualified for that making 65. But I don't know. They, people can make them numbers do what they wanted to do on them applications. So you know how that go. As long as you don't get caught. So she says you need 120K for restaurant. I don't know what that's at. Kingswood River Oaks is where it's at. I feel you. So Katrina say mother-in-law suites. Okay, that's what they call it. You see, in Florida, we don't have that type of stuff. So I didn't know what that was. I thought it was a shed initially, but I was like, no, it's too nice to be a shed. So they call them motherland suites. Okay. Yeah, so Sugarland is off 6. Yeah, like I said, yes, I was off of 6 because the gym off of 6. And on the other side, west of the gym, is where I would see them big old houses. I was like, I don't think you can get in that for 65,000. Now, maybe 2 people at 65,000 you can, but 1 person, I don't see how you're gonna get qualified. And then if you do, I don't see how with 65,000, how you gonna put the 10% to 20% down. But like I say, I don't know how people, people handle their money, how they handle their money. I ain't gonna tell nobody what they can't do. So Selva says, Sugarland, you probably need 120 and up. Yeah, there's a lot of agents out there, man. They getting paid. They making money. Because at the gym I used to work out in, it was majority Chinese people and Indians. Even they call all them Asians. I don't. To me, they Chinese and Indian people. But the gym I worked at was primarily Chinese and Indians. And then I would go north on 6 to go to, it was a gym at A-Leaf. I would go to on West A-Leaf. And it was primarily Mexicans, Chinese people, and Black folks. So Ant says, you in the field while I've been raising my earned potential exponentially. I'm at 80 now. So I guess it'll be running for a year or 2. Yeah, you'll get in there, just do what you got to do and just maintain. But like I said, you may catch a deal. If you out there, you in the mix. So you might catch a deal. So like I said, I would go talk to an agent, somebody that's working in that area, and just talk to them and let them know what you're trying to do and work with them. Because you never know you could catch a deal. Because that person that's in the area, they may know a stuff, I forgot what you call it, where it's not on the market, it's not listed. And they may be able to get you in something that's within your range because y'all got the relationship. So I would get on the phone and call people and be like, look, this is what I'm trying to do. This is what I'm making. And do you think we could, you could look out for me or work with me based on my numbers and see what y'all could do? That's what I would do. You know what I'm saying? Because I know a lot of people get into properties that way through their network. Because that's how Jimmy told me he get all his properties. He get his properties through his network. Why did I leave Houston? I didn't like it. It was too big. So I was living in the Sugarland, Stafford area. I didn't like it because I didn't like the fact that it's an hour to get into the city. And I didn't like the fact that it's 45 minutes to get to Katy. It's an hour to get to Pearland. That's not my vibe. I'm a city person. I'm actually where I'm from, we actually are in the city. So I'm from West Orlando, but I'm actually from the city of Orlando. So growing up, we was in the city. I'm not from the suburbs. I'm from a neighborhood, but I'm not from the suburbs. So I don't know about I can't really relate to suburban living. And then when I'm driving through those neighborhoods in Houston, to me, they didn't have no character to it. It looked too bland. It looked too cookie cutter. And I couldn't do that. So I was like, this is just really not my flavor. And I'm driving around, but I never could really get the vibe of it. I couldn't imagine being a child being raised like that. Because I'm like, you live out here. It was a mall out there, but I don't go to the mall. And that pretty much was it. And I was like, okay, so what people do every day? So I just couldn't, I don't know, because I'm from the Southeast, I'm just used to the Southeast. But I just never could catch the vibe. But I'm from the actual city, so I'm used to getting on the bus and going to something that's downtown and then taking the bus back to the crib, right? Or being a youngster, taking the bus to work and then taking the bus back to work. I used to take the bus to college and taking the bus back. You couldn't do none of that while I was there. You had to drive everywhere. And I wasn't really feeling that. So I was like, no, this is really not me. While I'm at in the metro, I can be inside the city of Atlanta in 15 minutes, right? So I'm not so far away out, but I'm not one of those people. I was raised an hour outside of the city. I wasn't raised that way. So I can't really I couldn't catch the vibe of it. So I was like, I got to get up out of here. Went to the airport, took a whole hour to get to the airport to drive from Stafford, Sugar Land to George Bush. Took a whole hour. I'm on the toll road, so no lights. I said, yeah, I can't do this. But I see that Houston is like the city of tomorrow. It's real concrete. It's super urban. And it's super spread out. And that's what them people like. Houston to me reminds me of how this country looked like in the 90s. When nobody lived in the city, everybody lived way out. My thing was that I was in the 90s, I was still living in the city. So I never had that experience of living way, way, way out. And then if we want to go do something, we drive into the city and drop. Where I'm from, we just catch the bus and we walk to it because I lived that close to the downtown. And then I knew little stuff in my area. So I just never could catch the vibe of it. You know, I realized it just ain't me. And also what I didn't like is they don't put up, in Atlanta, they put up the barriers for the highway. They don't do that in Houston. So everywhere you go, you hear the highway. And I didn't like that. So everywhere I was at in Houston, and maybe it's just me, I was sensitive to it, I could always hear the highway. You know, the sound of tires going over the road, whether you got the cracks in the road, you know, they put the road down in sections. So that sound of the tires going over those sections, I heard that all the time. So every time I left my house, I was hearing that when I'm moving around, and I got tired of hearing that too. So I say, I can't be out here because with me, it was noise pollution. Where in Atlanta, what they do is they put up these big walls on the highway. So that sound of the highway don't carry off of the highway. Especially where I'm at on the north side. They've invested a lot of money into that. When in Houston, they don't do any of that. All Houston got is highways. So that was another thing. To me, it was noise pollution. But like I said, if you're from there, you're probably used to it. But I'm not from there, so I wasn't used to it. So that's why I had to get up on out of there. But, you know, I'm not down in it. It's a big city, a lot of money out there. The people was real nice, but I just couldn't do the environment. And I couldn't figure out where to live actually inside the city limits. Because I can't do that. I can't do living an hour outside of the city. That don't work for me. Because I like to do stuff. And I'm not a busybody. But I can't live in those suburbs, man. And it's like you walk out your house and it's like just boring as hell. I wasn't raised that way. You know, I don't know how you could be a child. It's like that's why these kids be in the house playing video games all day. It ain't nothing to do. I wasn't raised that way. We stayed into something. We rode our bikes and did all kind of stuff, but we was close to the activity. Houston is different. But it's nice though, and there's a lot of money out there. But it just wasn't my flavor. Dark man, you should go out there. That's where everybody at now. Everybody leaving Atlanta going to Houston. So you're gonna fall right into it. Everybody leaving the A and they going to Houston. So, you know, they claim Houston where it's popping at. So I tell you, go ahead and do what you got to do. So that just means the real estate gonna go up. So LJ says it's called a pocket listing. Yeah, you need to check that out. I have not been to San Antonio. But what I was about to say, yeah, I ain't never been out there. It was no reason for me to go out there when I was out there. I was trying to get to Dallas, but I didn't want to drive. All right, man. So that's pretty much gonna be it. Appreciate everybody for coming through. Hit the likes if you haven't hit it on the way out the door. Y'all be easy, man. Talk to y'all later.